So today, our game plan is to talk about lab stuff for the week. Okay, so if you are interested, I don't know if you printed out this skill sheet or not, but we're gonna talk about that quickly. Do you guys want me to pull it up so you can see it on my screen as I talk about it? Okay. Hold on one second and let me get that for you. Let me just pull it off from our class. One second here. Let me see. I think I probably put it in week 4. That's where we do our practice. Let's thinking about it. Okay, here we go. One second, I'm just waiting for it to decide to open. The computer's thinking about it. Okay, here we go. All right, let me share my screen with you now. Okay, here we are. This is supposed to say 90. Okay. All right. Can you guys see that? Or somebody give me a shout out and let me know.
Can see it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay. All right. So should look a little bit familiar. What we're going to focus on this week is, let me just highlight it. This fun stuff right here. Okay, so these are the things that I'm going to be demonstrating and you're going to be practicing this week. We have 4 hours of lab time to get a demo and a practice done for each of these things for each of you in your groups. So I'm going to try to streamline things as much as possible, but it will help if you're familiar with these practices before you come to lab. So some resources for you. Of course, this is a helpful resource, but also your operating room skills book, this guy. And we're gonna be referring to that today during class. Your Surge Tech book also has some good information about these things in chapter 9. Okay, and then there's also your workbook or your study guide, which is what you need to bring to class to lab, because we'll be using those checkoffs in there like we have in the past. So those are some good resources. So if you can familiarize yourself with those, that would be really helpful. So the first one's pretty easy, right? Be properly attired. You're gonna come to class in your scrubs, that's just a given, right? And then hat, mask, and eyewear we'll need. No jewelry, then we'll just make sure we have on all of our PPE. Okay, so that's an easy 5 points right there. The next one is gonna be to check the preference card. And the preference card I will have for you. Let me see, I have it up here. I don't know how when I switch, I can't switch back. Okay, let me just stop for a second and share the preference card with you. It's, so I'll have a copy of this for everyone, For every single mock procedure that we do, you'll have a preference card that looks similar. So the preference card, remember, is like the recipe for the surgery. So it's going to tell us everything that we need. And they come in all different types of forms and formats. This is just one type. But this has just a few little items on there. Like I said, we're starting small, baby steps. You're going to have some items that are on your field that we're just going to use for counting purposes, but we're not going to do anything else with them. So that's the next step. After you make sure you have on all your PPE, then you're going to get your preference card, okay? And your preference card is going to allow you to double check to make sure that you have everything that you need for the procedure. So you can see here under supplies/suture are the things that you're going to need to grab. So surgeon's gown, which I'll have my own separate gown that you'll be opening, so it'll be a good practice for you. Surgeon's gloves, these are the size that I wear. A laparotomy pack, that's what's going to go on our back table, and a minor basin, which is going to have some goodies in it for you, like sponges and a little sharps box, and so on and so forth. So it'll have some goodies in there. You'll see all of that. And then suture doesn't really matter what kind. I just want you to open one, and then we can count it. Okay, so we're not loading suture, we're not messing with any type of sharps other than having them on the field to count. All right, and I'll demonstrate all of that. We're gonna pull a minor tray. That's the tray that we've been working with last week. So we're gonna pull that for our procedure. We're not gonna worry about equipment right now. We're going to learn how to pour saline in the circulating roll and how to receive saline onto the sterile field in the surge tech roll. Don't have to worry about prep or dressings. The patient is going to be supine. That'll be the circulator's responsibility, just to make sure that the patient's in the supine position, and that's it. So it's a pretty simple preference card. As we move forward and we get into procedures, this title right here is going to change to the title of the procedure, and then underneath it we'll have the surgeon's name and their glove size. The one thing that the preference card does not take into consideration is you as the scrub tech. So you will need to have your own gown, get your own gown, and pull your own gloves. Okay, so these things, they don't think about us. So at the beginning of the day, you know, in the field, we typically go into the sterile supply room, pull a whole bunch of gowns and a whole bunch of our gloves, and just stash them in the corner in the room somewhere so that we have those for ourselves. Okay, questions about the preference card? Okay, we're gonna switch back to the other one now. Sorry, a bit of hopscotching around here. Okay, yeah, no, not right one. Why did I do that? Okay, here, okay. So we should be back to the course competency. If you can't see that, let me know, but I think it says that I'm sharing, so you should be able to see the final competency sheet. So we talked about the preference card, basic hand wash. We'll probably just verbalize this for now, okay? So once you gather all of your supplies, what this doesn't say is that you're gonna check them for integrity. So what does that mean? What are we doing when we check for integrity?
Checking for any tears or strike through.
Yes, checking for tears, checking for strike through. Anything else?
What about any chemical indicators?
Absolutely. If there's a chemical indicator, we for sure want to check for that. Excellent. Anything else you can think of? Yeah, good job, Adriana. Expiration dates. Those are all the things that I would look for. So we check the packaging, make sure there's no rips, tears, holes, strike through, look for chemical indicator, look for expiration date. Okay, excellent job. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to position our equipment. So we want to make sure that the back table's pulled away from the wall and that the equipment that we're going to use, like the Mayo stands, the back table, the ring stand, whatever we need is kind of there and positioned in a way that it's supposed to be. We're going to spread out all of our things. Back table pack's going to go on the back table. You know, we're going to set our instrument tray on a small little prep stand, whatever. So we call that spreading our supplies. So we're going to do that. Okay, and then before we start to open, that's when we do our hand wash. So right before we start to open our goodies, you can just verbalize, I would do a basic hand wash, all right? And then that's just, you know, to the wrist like we practiced before. And then you're gonna open your stuff. This is not in order. So where do we start opening? Anybody remember? What's the first thing we open? Nobody remembers? Yeah, thank you, Ian. The back table, right? So we're gonna always start opening at the back table, and then wherever we go from there, we just kind of want to work closest to the back table and out to the periphery. Okay, if we want to open our back table and then open our little packs onto it, that's fine. Then we just want to work outward from there. All right, so we're going to open our stuff. And then where are we going to open our own gown and gloves? Who knows? Where do we open those? On the Mayo stand. Excellent. You are absolutely right. Good job. So we'll open our gown and gloves on the Mayo stand. And then once everything is open, it's scrub time. Okay, it's scrub time. Scrub is going to take us, if you look in the operating room skills book, it says 3 to 5 minutes. It's probably going to take us about 5 minutes. If it's under 5 minutes, you're probably not going to get full points, because at this point we're very new and going too fast is just going to cause chaos for us. So we're going to shoot for between 5 and 10 minutes. But if you're scrubbing for 15 minutes, that's way too long. All right, so we're going to kind of focus on that time between 5 and 10. A little outside of that is fine. If it's a 2-minute scrub or if it's a 15-minute scrub, that's way out of our range. Okay, so we would scrub. Once we scrub, then we go into the operating room, we dry our hands, and we gown and glove ourselves. And we're gonna stop at that point for next week. Then the following week, we're gonna focus on the setup and the intraoperative portion. Okay, so that's what we're focusing on this week. All of this stuff that is highlighted in yellow. Questions about this so far? So if you're looking to know what pages, that is either in the lesson plan or on the Blackboard. I have listed all of the pages. So you can find that information there. If we have time at the end of class, I would like to go through those page by page and have you name, date, and sign those so you can mark them at that time. So we'll try to have time at the end to at least mark those for you, okay? Does that help, Ian? You're welcome. Any other questions at this point? We're gonna dig into this. This is just kind of the overview. Okay, so we looked at the preference card, we looked at the comp sheet. You will always have a comp sheet for your final competencies. Study them. Study them like, study for your competencies like you would study for a test. Know the steps, know what's required. Another thing that's going to be coming is what we're going to put on our Mayo stand and how we're going to set up our back table. So at that time, when we do that, it might be good to get your phone and take a video or take a picture and study those so that when you come into class, you know what your moves are and you know where things go, and you don't have to kind of stop and think like, okay, what do I need to put on the Mayo stand? We're going to keep it very simple. but there will be a list of items that I'm going to require for you to put up on the Mayo stand. Okay? We're not really doing a procedure, so I'm just going to pick some things that require different passing techniques. Okay, and we're going to practice maybe some hand signaling. Remember those? Okay. Any other questions about the preference card or the competency sheet? We're going to move on and watch some videos if there aren't any questions on that.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
And you probably already answered this, but is the final competency the same day or is it done at a later date?
So if you look at your lesson plan, the layout is in week 3, we're going to do a practice competency. So week 2, we'll learn, this week, we'll learn the stuff I just talked about. And then in week 3, we're going to learn the rest of the story. And then in week 4, we're going to put all those dance steps together in a practice. So theoretically, in week 4, when you come in, it's going to be all of us are going to be running through that practice competency. We're going to be paired up. You'll be a circulator and you'll be a surge tech. You will serve in both of those roles. Okay? And then in week 4, and I will grade you. So you're going to have one of these competency sheets filled out in week 4. That will be it's like your practice competency, and that's when you need somebody to record you as well, all right? Because later you're going to do a critique of yourself. So that'll be the practice. It'll give you an idea of where you're at and where you need to work and grow. And then in week 5 will be the real deal, what I call down and dirty, all right, will be what is going to go in the grade book. Okay, so again, you'll be doing all of the things that are listed on the competency sheet, but for a real grade now. And that will happen on whatever day in week 5 that you're in lab, all of you will go through your competency. It's kind of a long way around. Did that answer your questions?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Anything else? Okay. All right, well, maybe some things will come up as we go. So the operating room skills book has some really nice videos, and in these videos that we're gonna watch, there's only one little tweak that I wanna make. Otherwise, these videos are really excellent. So it's gonna give you a really good idea of how things are gonna go. As far as we're going to look at opening sterile items and then the scrub gown and glove. Okay, and I'm going to try to post these videos. You should be able to access them as well. So I'll post the links at some point today, and then I don't know if one of you just wants to give me a shout out to be like, hey, I can access them or I can't, whatever the case may be. But I'll try to post the links in the Blackboard today. And let me make a note of that. So you can rewatch them if you want to. Links for skills. Okay. All right, so the first video that we're going to watch is on opening sterile supplies. So that's gonna pretty much encompass back table, opening small items, opening instrument trays, opening gown and gloves. It's going to give us the whole picture. Okay, so let me go to that. Let's see. I think this is where I want to go. That's our class. That's not what I want, but over here, opening sterile supplies is what we want. Okay. And action.
The surgical technologist in the non-sterile role opens the case cart, selects, sorts, and organizes supplies. Each facility uses a method to organize and transport supplies for each case. In this scenario, a case cart system is used. She inspects the outer dust cover. If torn, she will not use the pack. One tray of sterile instruments is carried and placed onto a small table near the back table. She returns to the case cart and continues to retrieve and sort supplies that have been stacked into the cart for this laparotomy procedure. Notice the tan tape on the outside of the blue wrappers. The tan tape has black stripes, indicating that the parameters for sterilization have been met. This is another visual inspection that occurs when setting up the supplies. The surgical technologist continues to select and place basin packs into ring stands. She pulls the gray bin out of the lower shelf of the case cart and carries it and the preference card to the OR bed, where she will continue to select and sort the supplies that she will use on her back table. Another variation is to sort the supplies on a separate table. The second pan of instruments is moved to the OR bed. If the room has additional tables, then it is preferred to place pans on them. Once at the back table, she begins to open the sterile supplies. She inspects the back table pack for breaches in the integrity of the package. The back table cover is opened using the principles of aseptic technique. The first flap is opened away from her body, and the second flap is opened towards her body. She grasps the left side only by the 1-inch imaginary border. At the right side of the table, she only touches the drape edge. She cannot touch the inner contents, nor move the drape once placed. The same principles are followed for the basin pack. Inspect, open sequentially, and do not touch inside. The surgical technologist is confident as she carefully moves the ring stand below the level of the basins. The second ring stand is approached. The surgical technologist ensures that there is sufficient room to perform the task to maintain inner sterility. She follows the same principles. Inspect, open sequentially, and do not touch inside. The next 2 packs are opened as she walks towards the back table. The packs contain green OR towels. She opens each pack sequentially and then secures the wrapper tails to prevent contamination of the back table. She verifies that the flaps are contained, then places the towels onto the back table. Application of sterile technique comes with practice. View this DVD frequently as you perfect your skills. The surgical technologist sequentially unwraps a metal container that holds the camera cord. The 4 flaps are alternately opened between her 2 hands. You may also learn to open the pack by grasping the flaps in only one hand. She verifies that the flaps are contained before placing the tray onto the back table. The 4th pack that is unwrapped contains the surgeon's gown and drying towel. She places these onto the back table and tosses the outer plastic wrap into the waste receptacle. The laparotomy drape pack is inspected. The outer plastic dust cover is tossed, and the inner blue wrap is sequentially opened. The drape pack is placed onto the back table using aseptic technique. A third style of wrapper, the peel pack, is opened. The plastic dust cover and the double blue wrap were the other 2 styles of wrappers viewed here. The peel pack allows you to see the item inside. The item can be irregularly shaped or can contain parts. The surgical technologist is using the sterile ring stand basin to catch the peel pack contents. The back table is less likely to be contaminated using this method. After she has scrubbed in, she moves the items from the basin to her back table or mayo stand. She opens 1. A marking pen and medicine labels. 2. Defogging liquid and sponge. 3. A red needle mat. 4. A 10 milliliter syringe. 5. A hypodermic needle for the syringe. 6 and 7 are packs of gloves. 8. Raytech countable sponges. 9. A green light handle cover. Note how she obtains control of the peel pack edges before she empties the contents into the sterile basin. And 10. A scalpel blade, which is placed into a separate container so that she knows exactly where this sharp item is located. Some custom packs contain all of these supplies, and they are not opened individually. The surgical technologist retrieves a large pack from the OR bed, inspects, and then discards the plastic dust cover. She sequentially opens the first blue wrapper, secures the flaps, and places the pack onto the back table. The second sterile wrapper will be opened once she has scrubbed in. Heavy items can be opened on a separate table. On the outside of the first instrument pan, the plastic locks have been verified and discarded. The lid is lifted up and the filters are inspected for holes or moisture. The second tray of instruments is inspected and opened. The surgical technologist points to the load number and sterilization date. This information is important and will assist to locate equipment that did not successfully meet sterilization parameters once the biological tests are complete. The lid is lifted up and out. The paper filters are removed from the lid and inspected for holes or moisture. The surgical technologist opens and prepares her own gown and gloves. Space is limited in this room, so she uses an available flat surface. A mayo stand is preferred. She will open 2 pairs of gloves. The first one falls off the table, so she needs to obtain a substitute. She gains control of the peel pack edges before releasing the gloves. The sterile supplies are open, and the surgical technologist exits to scrub at the sink.
Okay. Okay, so that's our first video on opening sterile supplies. What did you guys notice?
Her aim was really good.
Her aim was really good. She only dropped one thing. It happens, though.
I like that she used the ring stand basin to catch some of the smaller items or like items that could easily roll off the back table. I thought that was a really great idea to use that.
Yes, it is a good idea. Yep. Ian's on the same page with you there, Tori. Yep. Anything else? Did you notice that her shirt wasn't tucked in? Right? So before you open, you want to make sure you're all tucked in, right? Just so that your shirt isn't kind of sticking out farther away from your body. You're kind of making your space, your footprint a little bit smaller, right? So I want to tuck in the shirt. So I have some questions. What?
I kind of noticed too, which I thought was kind of strange. She like pretty much almost climbed into that garbage can.
She did climb into the garbage can. She went all the way down into there. Yeah, I don't know. At this point, you're not sterile, so I guess it's okay, but I typically don't put my arm all the way down into the trash can either. Yeah, no. Who knows what's in there? I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you. Any other comments? So let me ask you a couple questions. Where do the basins go? Where do you place the basin? Yeah, the ring stand. Exclamation point, Rainey. You're absolutely right. Yes. In the ring stand. Yeah, that's where they go. Sometimes you'll see single ones. We have 2 single ones, I believe, in the lab, and then you'll see a double one. So sometimes there's 2 basins nested one within the other, and we call these double basin sets, and we should only use the double ring stand for a double basin set. We shouldn't ever put a single basin in a double ring stand. Good. Where are some good places to sort through your supplies?
I found it interesting how they use the OR table.
Yeah, the OR table. Yep, and that's what we typically do. In the lab, like we have a mannequin laying there, but in the real world, there's nothing on the OR table. So we always just grab our bucket, just like she did, the gray bin, and bring it over to the OR table, kind of sort things out because there will be extra items in there sometimes. Some things will just stay in the bin, extra stuff, and then you'll just pull out the stuff that you need. And so the OR table is a really great place to do that. Or an extra table, right? He said could be used too. Most operating rooms don't have a ton of space. So the OR table is typically where we do that. Okay, good. When you're opening items that are wrapped, and she opened several wrapped items, one of the things that I suggest that she doesn't demonstrate is just checking the wrap just for its integrity. I know the thing is already on your field, but it's always a good practice just to check that wrap after you open something, just to make sure it doesn't have a breach, because if it does, then we have a contamination. So double checking that wrap is a good practice to get into. So when we're opening something, what's the order of the flaps? Where does the first flap go?
Away.
Away. Yes. The first flap goes away, so you're going to orient whatever item it is so that that first flap is going away from you, whether you're holding it or whether it's sitting on a table or in a ring stand or whatever. That first flap's always going to go away. Yes, absolutely. You guys are right. Then what about the next flap? Yep, to the side. And it just kind of depends on which one is on top, right? As you saw her opening, she changed hands to do this side, right? And then changed hands to do this side and then the front one. The reason that's a good practice is because you would be reaching over to get this flap. Now, there is a way that you can do it. You can still do it, but you have to turn your item this way. So now the flap is going away from you. You see what I'm saying? So I'll show you both ways out in the lab, whichever one works, but whatever flap is on the top, you're going to go in that direction, and then the other direction, and then that last flap is going to come towards you. Okay, good. When you're opening the peel pack, it's gonna be like sealed on the sides. And so you wanna, did you see her like kind of slide her thumb down each end? It's like to break those little tabs. And then this is what I always say, you'll probably hear me say it 1,000 times, commit to your grip. Okay, so once you get a hold of that peel pack, I usually do it like this. So once you get a hold of it and you break that seal, you cannot let go at that point. You have to be committed, because if you let go of this side to adjust your grip, that package closes and it's technically considered contaminated. So you don't want to do this with your pack. You want to break the seal and continue opening it, and it needs to go onto the field. So I would say commit to the grip. Don't let go of those package edges once you start. Remember that where it's sealed is considered non-sterile. So you don't want to dump the contents of the packet so it slides over that edge. You want to pop it out of there so that it's not sliding across those sealed edges. Okay, and then where should we put our scalpel blade? Or any sharp for that matter.
I don't know, mixed up with other items.
Where it's not mixed up with other items
Right.
by itself, right? I think she opened it into a separate little basin, but we're not going to have that. So the best practice in that case is just to open it on a corner of your back table where it is going to be exposed and seen, right? You don't want to pop it onto your back table, then throw towels and gloves and whatever else on top of it. You could hurt yourself. You could poke a hole in your back table. What if you're opening for someone else? If you're opening for someone else, they're going to come in and they don't know where you've opened stuff. So if you open those sharps, and some places they have policies where you don't open your sharps. Once you get scrubbed in, the nurse peels the pack open and you get the contents as the surge tech. So you want to go by their policy, but if you are opening them onto the field, you want them in an area that is easily seen and so that they don't get covered up. Okay? Okay, other questions, comments about opening stuff? Are you guys excited? We get to start opening stuff? Come on now.
She made it look so easy.
It is. No,
I'm like, that's gonna take me a hot minute to get there.
it will.
Seriously, like, she stacked those green towels so perfect.
She did. I don't know if I could even do that, honestly. I wonder how many times they had to record until they got it like that perfect. I swear, like it never goes that perfectly. But she did drop the one thing, and I think it was probably choreographed, you know, just to emphasize if you do drop something, you just get another one and open it. But yeah. Yes, indeed. It'll take a little bit of practice, but you guys you'll get there. You'll get there. We'll start out slow. You guys will do fine. All right. If there isn't anything else, then we're going to watch a video. Our next video is on scrubbing. And then after that, we'll take a break. Okay, so there's only one discrepancy in this video that I would like to change, and I will pause it and point it out. It's a very small, minor thing. Hopefully it won't cause any heartburn at all. But overall, like I said, these videos I think are pretty spot on. Okay, let's go to that next video. This is the gal that will be scrubbing for you today. Wait, let me get my chat out here just in case you guys need to talk to me, type to me.
Standing at the scrub sink, remember to adjust your mask, don protective eyewear, roll up your sleeves, and adjust your OR attire for comfort.
She's adjusting for comfort. Okay.
Select a scrub brush packet with a fingernail pick and soap. A basic hand wash is performed before the surgical hand scrub.
So the difference between the basic hand wash that's just washing from fingertips to wrist, This hand wash before you scrub is up to your elbow. All right, and we're just gonna do the regular practice on our fingers and hands like we did before, and then we're just gonna continue up to our elbow, all right? And then we'll just rinse, just regular rinse, all right? So you can see that her skin is wet. We scrub up to 2 inches above the elbow. So we're just gonna pre-wash that area first, okay?
Run the fingernail pick under the nails while holding your hands under running water to remove debris. Discard the pick. Retrieve the sponge brush, discard the wrapper, and begin to scrub your fingernail tips using the prickly side of the sponge. Use 30 strokes over the fingernails. 1 stroke is a back and forth motion. Research indicates that the fingernails contain more microbes than the hands, so that area is scrubbed more vigorously. The surgical hand scrub will remove the transient microbes and some of the resident flora that symbiotically inhabit our skin under normal conditions. Do not touch the faucet. Begin the scrub again if this occurs. Hospital policy may vary, so follow the advice of your facility. The fingers, hands, and forearms are each divided into 4 planes, and each plane is scrubbed 10 times each. Count 1 for each back and forth motion over each plane. Scrub 10 times on each of the 4 planes of the fingers. AST recommends scrubbing each web space with 10 strokes too. Continue to scrub each of the planes of all fingers and the web spaces with 10 strokes each. In this view, the surgical technologist's hand appears to be closer to the faucet than it really is. Re-wet the brush as needed to increase the suds. The process moves to the 4 planes on the hand. Scrub each plane with 10 strokes.
Okay, so this is the only thing that I'm going to change. Palm and back of hand, 30 strokes. Okay, palm and back of hand, not 10, but 30. 30 circles.
Do not touch the faucet, dividers, or other surfaces. Keep fingers pointed upwards. The arm is divided into 3 sections. Each section has 4 planes. Continue to keep the hand pointed upward, away from the faucet, and scrub each plane. Work distally to proximally. Re-wet the brush as needed to revitalize the suds. The first section is approximately the wrist area. The second section is the mid-forearm, and the final section takes the scrub to 2 inches above the elbow. Continue to use the sponge side of the brush for the second hand and arm. The sponge prevents microabrasions on frequently scrubbed skin, which can be a source of infection.
A fair amount of
Work
pressure.
distally to proximally.
That
Scrub
adds
each
our
of the 4
mechanical
planes
action.
and the web spaces with 10 strokes each. Scrub the 4 planes on the hand with 10 strokes each.
I would say medium pressure.
Scrub the 3 areas of the arm and the 4 planes with 10 strokes each. End about 2 inches above the
You're
elbow.
welcome.
Maintain elevation of your hands at the highest point during your scrub to prevent water from running backwards.
Start working out your shoulders.
Dispose the used scrub brush into the receptacle. Keep your hands pointed upwards and begin to rinse thoroughly. Use a scooping or swooping motion. Wiggle your fingers under running water slowly to remove the suds. Rinse in the direction of distal to proximal. Allow the water to drip off your elbows. Repeat the process with your opposite hand and arm. Most facilities have integrated the use of
Okay, we're not gonna talk about alcohol-based scrub yet. Okay, so tell me some things that you noticed.
Fingernails seem long. Was that a good length for fingernails?
So a good rule of thumb should be if you can look at the backs of them like this and see them over your fingernail, over your tips of your fingers, they're probably too long. So if you're looking at them from the front, no more than 1/4 of an inch long, I would say that would be the max. Yep, I think her nails were fine. Good question. Oh, lots of bubbles. Yes, I love the bubbles. Great question. So when we're scrubbing, and the guy mentioned it several times that we want to keep our fingers above our elbows because we always want to keep water running in this direction because this is clean and then up here is dirty. So if we're washing down like this, we have water running from dirty to clean. So that's why we always work in this orientation. Does that make sense? Yeah, you're welcome.
Definitely scrubbing involved.
It's involved. Yeah, I can remember when I was teaching in Tucson and we had a teaching demo, I think, and the faculty person that was applying for the job did scrub, gown, and glove. And at the dean was there, and at the end he said, I had no idea that it was that involved to wash your hands. And I'm like, yeah, it's a lot. And you get so fatigued, like right here from, and another thing, when you're scrubbing, not only do you want to stay away from the sink, but you also want to keep your arms away from your body. Like you can't bring your arms close to your body like this because they're going to get contaminated on your shirt. So when you scrub, it's arms out and up like this. And even doing that for 5 minutes, by the end, you are going to feel fatigued. And then when you finally get dried and get your gown on, it'll be like, oh, thank goodness, right? Because your shoulders are going to feel tired.
I don't know if it matters, but do you turn the water off while you're doing all that scrubbing?
You can.
When we go from decontamination over to packaging and sterile, they tell us
It's hard to hear you, Rulon. It's like really slow, but I think the gist of it was you were asking if you can turn the water off while you're scrubbing. Is that what you were asking? Was there more? If there's more, maybe you could type it into the chat box. It'd be easier. But yes, you can definitely turn the water off, and then, you know, you can turn it back on if you need to wet your brush because, or wet your skin. So, yeah. can turn it off while you're scrubbing. Another thing that is important, it's all important, but once you start scrubbing, if any of you touches the faucet, or for us, there's those cabinets that are there. And you want to try to be over the sink, but you want to try to be away from the handles of the cabinets. If you touch anything while you're scrubbing, there's a couple different schools of thought. My old school of thought is you start over from the beginning. If you look in the Fuller's book says you need to scrub that area for an additional amount of time. Okay, so in the lab, for now, what we will do is you will verbalize your contamination, and you will just verbalize that you would start over. I contaminated, I would start over, because we're not gonna take the time to stop and start over. In the real world, what will happen is if you contaminate, you just do some extra scrub time. Say I'm to my elbow, but I hit my finger on the faucet. I'm gonna go back to my finger. I'm gonna scrub that for an additional 10 strokes or whatever. I'm gonna finish my scrub. I'm gonna rinse, I'm gonna towel off, and then I'm probably gonna use the waterless on top of that. Okay, so that's definitely something that you can do. But for now, we'll just verbalize the contamination and say, I would start over, and that's all we're gonna do for now. When we're rinsing, we always need to keep that same orientation of fingers going towards the sky and elbow going down towards the ground as you rinse. When you rinse, you can't go back and forth under the water like this, all right? It's a one shot. You can do this with your fingers like she was doing. Go slow as you go through, come up and off the upper arm. If you need to go again, you're out of the water, you come back into the water, you go again. If you got all the suds, then it's time to do the other one, come out of the water. If you need to go again, fingertips to elbow always as you're rinsing, not back and forth. Okay. Other questions or comments about scrubbing? How many planes are there on each thing that we're scrubbing?
4.
4 planes. So how many back and forth strokes on each plane of the fingers?
10.
10. Good. What about the palm and the back of the hand?
You say 30.
Yes, we're going to do 30. The sides of the hand. Okay. And what I typically do when I'm scrubbing is what I will demonstrate when we're out there is I usually come down and get the side of my hand with my pinky side, so I don't have to go back to that again. And then I do the same with my thumb side, from here down to my hand here, 10. And then that way, I just go here, and I go here on the back, and then I can start with my arm. All right, so that's a little cheat code for you. Okay, so 4 planes, the fingers we do 10 strokes, and that is a back and forth is 1, back and forth is 2, back and forth is 3, and then 30 on the palms and the back. And then how many sections did they say the arm is broken up into? 3 sections. And how many planes for each of those sections? 4 planes. Yep. And how many strokes do we do on each of those planes? 10. Yes. And I noticed that she is using just a straight back and forth, but I typically go like in a circular motion like this. That way you're kind of covering all of this area instead of maybe a straight up and down. You're not really getting the sides because we're not really built in a square, humans. So 10, yes. And then we scrub up to how far above the elbow? 2 inches above the elbow.
2 inches.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Okay, any other questions or comments about the scrub for now?
And the finger webbing, the in between here.
The finger webbing, I kind of use a cheat code on that too. I usually don't scrub it separately. I usually come down with my brush and kind of do a little turn, like on each in between, like 1, 2, 3, you know, to 10, and then kind of here, instead of scrubbing it separately. Whatever you feel comfortable with, you can do that. We just want to make sure that we're catching that web space. Yep, very good. Anything else?
Does the sponge ever run out of soap? Like where when you get to the second hand, the other hand, like does it feel like less soap, or does it feel like how when you're scrubbing the other hand, like the same?
That's a good question. I think that it typically seems to have enough soap. You just want to be careful at the beginning. Like at the beginning, you're going to wet your brush and kind of just activate those suds, but you don't want to keep it under the water. I see a lot of us like just keep it under the water and we're just like washing out the soap. So you just kind of want to wet it and then bring it out from the water and, you know, activate it and then do your scrub. If you're under the water with it too much, you're going to wash out your soap. But I think that you'll find, and I like lots of bubbles. Like the more bubbles, the more I think that it's actually doing its job. So I'll, you know, periodically, I'll just give it a little bit of a, you know, under the water and just kind of squeeze it a little bit more as I continue. But you should have enough soap as long as you don't spend too much time washing it out under the water. That's what I'm going to go with. And there's different flavors of soap too. So just as there's different types of skin prep solutions, there's different types of scrubs. So there's the same. There's the betadine, which is the one I prefer to use because it rinses off from my skin. It doesn't irritate it as much as the chlorhexidine or the PCMX. But we do have those 3 flavors in the lab. And I encourage you to try them all at different times. Pick whichever one you're going to use for the first time. Make sure you don't have the betadine allergy. And you can try that one. You can try them all. Okay, the chlorhexidine one is the one that smells the best. And it's pink. Okay, so there's 2 good things about it, which I did start, when I started scrubbing, I did use the CHG, the chlorhexidine one, but my skin would feel itchy at the end of the day. And since you don't get to do this, you know, it's just that water that's rinsing off. I think there was some residual that was staying on my skin that was making it a little bit itchy. So I just switched to the betadine one, my preceptor's suggestion, and just stuck with that, or the waterless scrub, depending. Okay. Yeah.
How about like once you're done completely scrubbing all the moisture out of your skin for 5 to 10 minutes, what would your recommendation be for not turning into alligator skin or something leathery after doing many scrubs a day?
Yeah, so one of the ones that I found is the best is the SUR120, like the little hand cream size SUR120. Just keep that in your locker, and in between times, you know, you can apply that to your skin. However, just remember this: if you are, and you're not typically supposed to apply lotion, but you need to do a real scrub again. You know, because what we will do in the field is we'll come in, we'll do our initial scrub. We'll just do our scrub and get regular paper towels and dry. And then we just do that first thing in the morning. Then we'll go set up our room or open our room and do everything. And then we'll just do the waterless. But if you have lotion on your skin, that waterless is not going to do the job that it needs to do. So you would need to do a regular scrub in between. So I would say lather yourself up at the end of the day would be the best practice. That SUR120 is really great. And then there's another one. While we're on break, I'll get it. It's like in a green tube. I can't remember what it is, but neither of them are scented. And they seem to be, you know, the best to help you. The waterless, Scrub really is more drying than the regular scrub, honestly, because it has such a high alcohol content, 70 to 90% alcohol content. It's supposed to have some sort of emollients in it to moisturize the skin, but I think that's a bunch of, anyways, that's just my opinion. Yeah, but the alcohol scrub, I would say, is more damaging to our skin than the actual regular scrub. Yeah, good question. Other questions? Okay, well, let's take our 10-minute break. It's almost 5 after. Let's come back at 1/4 after. How does that sound? And then we'll talk about the hand drying and the gowning and gloving. Okay? All right, I'll see you at 9:15. Okay. Oh, Wendy is saying coconut oil works good too. Yeah. You can just buy a big old vat of that from Costco and use that for sure. Okay. So next on the agenda is to talk about the actual gown and glove part. So we are going to go with that. And let's see. Let's see. This one's the scrub, not that one. This one. Okay. Going to go with this one. And this video shows something that I never thought of, which is showing how to put on gloves using the closed gloving technique without a gown. So you can actually see like what your hands are doing. And that never occurred to me. And so I think that is brilliant, and I'm gonna steal it moving forward. Anyways, we've practiced open gloving several times. Now this is called closed gloving. Closed gloving we use with the gown specifically. Open gloving without the gown. Okay, here we go.
Be conscious of other team members. Announce your entrance if necessary. Reach into your mayo stand and lift up the towel. Do not drip onto your gown. Unfold the towel and begin to dry your hands while keeping them elevated. Bend at the waist to increase the distance between your scrub suit and the towel. Dry slowly and deliberately in the direction of distal to proximal. Discard the towel. Maintain your hands above waist level and away from your mouth. Grasp the gown at the neckline. Step away from the field to allow room to don the gown. Slip each hand and arm into the sleeve of the gown. Keep your hands and arms above waist level and at the mid-chest area. Your hands will not protrude through the cuffed edges at this time. The RN circulator or another non-sterile team member will fasten the 2 ties in the back of the gown. Walk to the Mayo stand and don your gloves utilizing the closed gloving method. Pinch at the cuffs of the gloves.
They don't have to stay rolled up. She just pushed hers way up on her
Remember
shoulders.
the jingle. Palm to palm,
I'm not sure why.
thumb to thumb,
but,
and fingers facing you while you are manipulating the gloves into place. Once in place, continue to adjust by pulling on the sleeve of the gown. This skill will take practice. You should perform it with confidence and accuracy. The surgical technologist dons 2 pairs of gloves. The first pair is a size 7.5, and the second pair is a size 7. The sterile gloves and sterile attire do not touch non-sterile surfaces. The surgical technologist holds the blue end of the tag in her right hand and pulls the left end of the tie out with her left hand. The white end of the tag is passed to the RN circulator, who wraps the tie around the back of the surgical technologist. The surgical technologist cannot manipulate the tie behind herself because that area is now considered to be non-sterile and out of direct view. This process has the nickname dancing. Select the right glove. Lift and flip it to orient the glove with palm to palm and fingers facing your face. Pinch the cuff, push your fingers through, and adjust by pulling on the sleeve of the gown. The glove should cover the white cuff of the gown. The cuff is no longer sterile since you pushed your hand through it. Repeat with the second glove. Don a second pair of gloves over the top of the first in a half size smaller. A simulation is shown next to demonstrate the movements of your hands underneath the gown and cuffs. Practice this skill until you can demonstrate it smoothly.
Okay. Okay, what did you notice?
Well, I have a question. So the first set of gloves is your regular size, but the second set of gloves is half a size smaller?
No, the first set, if you're double gloving, which we will only double glove for one case just to save on gloves. But when you're double gloving, typically the pair that goes closest to your skin is a half step up. Then you'll have your regular size as your outside pair. All right, we're just going to double glove when we do bowel resections, but just know that it is a typical practice that facilities are having, you know, scrub techs do out there. So yeah, like I wear a size 7, so I would open a size 7.5 for myself and a 7, and then the 7.5 I would put against my skin, and then the 7 I will put over the top. So this is really awesome because if you contaminate your outside glove or you get a little hole in it, it's easy to just take off that outer glove, discard it, and have your circulator open you another pair of like 7s in my case, and just easily put that 7 over. If you're only wearing a single glove and you contaminate, it is a bit more tricky, which we will learn how to replace a contaminated glove once we've already gowned and gloved and we're kind of in the mix of things. But that's why double gloving is a thing. Yep, I have seen surgeons like it differently besides the half step up against their skin and their regular size over the tops. One of the orthopods I worked with, he took 2 of the same size. So, but if there's 2 different sizes, I think it's safe to assume, you should probably double check though, but typically that half size bigger is going to go against their skin. But if you don't know them and you've never worked with them before, ask your preceptor or ask them yourself, you know, which way they want it. Because putting a half size bigger on top is going to leave all of this baggy glove, like too much excess glove. And if you put a regular size on and then another one on top of it that's a regular size, it's going to feel like somebody is cutting off the circulation on your fingers. Trust me. So at some facilities, they do have like a special type of biogel. Biogel is a manufacturer that makes like an underglove and an overglove. And so the underglove is called the indicator glove. It's like a green or a blue. And then the regular like yellowy white glove, kind of clearish, goes over the top. So if you do get a hole, it like shows up really blatantly. And then, you know, for you or your surgeon or whatever, but some facilities use those as well. Good question. Other observations or questions?
It looked really difficult putting those gloves on underneath the sleeves.
Especially when you have no fingers to use.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's one of those things you definitely don't want other people seeing you doing.
Yes.
I was thinking this is going to be entertaining.
It will be, it will feel very foreign at first. Yeah, it's very weird. It's very awkward. You want to make sure that your fingers don't come past those white cuffs. That's a big deal. And so then what that means is you're going to have this much material of the cuff that's kind of pushed up into your glove, which if you're not careful, I call it stuffing the cuff, but that cuff gets folded over your fingers and then you're literally like trapped in there. So it does take some finesse. The scrubbing, it takes time, but it's not that difficult. The gowning and drying is not that difficult. So as we practice and you do the scrub gown glove, I'll kind of have you do what we did with open gloving before, where you wash and then you open gloved, and then I just said, okay, just reset your gloves and practice. So that's what we'll do. So we can kind of get a feel for. My dogs are going to start barking, probably. Somebody's ringing my doorbell. I'm surprised they're not barking. Anyways, yeah, the gloving is going to be a little bit strange. What about, so when you go into the operating room to get your towel, what was one of the things that the narrator said be careful not to do? Do you remember?
Drip on your Mayo stand.
Yes, you don't want drips on your gown that's left behind, right? Because the gown comes with a towel, and that's going to be right on the top, and then you're going to open up the top, right? So when you approach the Mayo stand, the only thing that you want to get or touch is your towel. So you're going to get that, you're going to take a big step back, and you're going to dry. So here's the best practice. Leave your drips at the scrub sink. Okay, so after you rinse, you're going to stand there for a hot minute, waiting for the drips to drip off the elbows before you go into the OR. This helps with a couple things. One, it lessens the chance you're going to drip on the rest of your stuff when you get your towel, and it also avoids leaving a slippery mess that somebody else doesn't see, and when they're in a hurry, they're walking across the wet linoleum and then they're on their butts. Okay, so you want to try not to leave a wet trail from the scrub sink to the mayo stand, because that's just dangerous in and of itself. Okay, so you want to just leave your drips at the sink. That's what I always say, leave your drips at the sink. And then when you're putting that gown on, remember he said, get the gown. And when you get the gown, you don't want to touch the wrap or anything. You just want to touch the gown, take a big step back and let it unfold. Now, once your circulator ties you up in the back, you're going to cozy up to your mayo stand. You just want to make sure you maintain your distance from your mayo stand still, because you have that card that is attached to the front of your gown that you're going to use to dance with, right? That card is kind of sticking out a little bit, and then you have that wrap hanging off from the mayo stand. You do not want your card to touch that wrap that's hanging off from the mayo stand. So you need to still maintain your distance. You can't belly up to your mayo stand at this point. Okay, you still want to watch that. You want to watch that card so that it doesn't touch that wrap that's hanging off from the mayo stand. That's something I see a lot. All right. You also want to be careful not to shift that wrap as you're getting your gloves, right? Remember with open gloving, how we made it this big, huge deal, how you have to open it up and then fold it under to lock it open so it doesn't close. That does not matter here. We're sterile. It's sterile. We don't care, right? We just want to open up, take a little peek, open up the glove wrapper, get your glove and take a step back. You don't have to worry about futzing with it. Just as much touching and shifting, as least amount of touching and shifting as possible is going to be the best practice there. And then once you get your first set of gloves on, if you are double gloving, it doesn't matter how you put that second pair on. You're sterile, they're sterile, just get them, pull them on. It doesn't matter. You don't have to go and orient the glove in a special way or anything. You just pull them on and you call it a day. Okay. So in having said that, remind me of which parts of the gown are actually sterile once you get gowned and gloved. Nipples to navel. Okay, I like it.
Hand to 2 inches above the elbow.
Yes, ma'am. From fingertips to 2 inches above the elbow. Anywhere else? Nope, nowhere else. That's it. Okay, good. If you're standing up next to your back table, remember you're sterile from your back table up. Okay, so that might be a little lower than your belly button. Okay, good. Tell me how we orient the glove when we're close gloving. How do we have to orient it so we can get it on our hand correctly? Remember in the video? Yep. So palm to palm, yep, or thumb to thumb. Any way that helps you to remember it. You're going to find where the thumb of the glove is. You're going to find where your thumb is, and you're going to orient it that way. What else? Anything else we have to remember? Where are the fingertips facing? The fingertips of the glove. Towards your elbow, right? Yep. Towards your elbow. So thumb to thumb or palm to palm with fingertips pointing towards your elbow or pointing towards your body, however you want to think about it that makes sense. Okay, those are some of the biggest things. And then when you get your glove on, you want to make sure that it completely covers those white cuffs. Okay. Okay. Other questions or comments about drying or open gloving? Oh, a couple things about drying. You want to be really cognizant about keeping a fair amount of distance between your towel and your body. All right, so I'll show you how I do that. You don't, it's best if you kind of move this arm out as you're drying it instead of doing this, right? See the difference? Here, I'm bringing my hand closer to my body. I'm bringing the towel closer to my body. But if I start with this hand with my towel draped over it, and I actually push this hand out, I can pretty much maintain that distance, right? Because if the tail of your towel touches you, it's out of play. Okay, so that's one thing we want to be really cognizant of. And then the thing that I didn't like that she did in the video is, did you see when she was done with the second one, she switched hands with it to throw it in the trash? Don't do that. That's not the best practice. You want to think of your towel like it has two, here, let me use this Kleenex as a good example. So if this Kleenex is my towel, I put a line down the middle of it. On one half, you're going, with it hanging between your hands, you're going to start drying, and you'll dry this way. Then you're going to switch and go to that other side that you haven't touched yet. You're going to dry. Now, theoretically, up here is dirty. So you don't want to, after you're done, switch here or crumple it up to throw it away. You just want to go from wherever you ended, hover over the trash, and drop it into the trash. Okay, less handling of that, the better. Okay, at some point we could be splitting hairs, but that's a better technique when we're drying. Okay. All right, I think that was all the things that I wrote down to kind of point out. I think I got through my list now. So in the lab tomorrow, I will demonstrate how to open things, and then there will be a lot of repackaging and opening, repackaging and opening, repackaging and opening as we all cycle through. We're gonna be in the classroom for the first part at least. So I will drag everything that we need. I'm gonna go to campus today, have it all set up in the classroom, all of the stuff, like 2 piles of stuff probably. And then when you guys get there, I will demonstrate how you gather your supplies, check the preference card, check integrity, open up everything, and then we will repackage, and each of you will cycle through practicing for as much time as we have for the first 2 hours. Okay, so, and then that back half of class, lab should be open, and so we'll go straight to the scrub sinks, and I'll demonstrate scrubbing, and we'll all practice scrubbing. Okay, then we will do the gown and glove part. Okay, I'll probably demonstrate scrub, gown, glove, but then I'm just gonna have you guys scrub and dry your hands probably. But we'll see. We might do it all together. I might do it in steps. We'll see how it goes. But that'll be the back half of class, will be the scrub, gown, and glove. And then once you get done with your scrub, gown, and glove run through, then I'm just gonna have you keep practicing taking off your gloves, resetting them, gloving again, taking off your gloves, resetting them, gloving again. That's gonna be the most tricky part, as you guys pointed out. Okay, so the more practice we can get with that in the back half of class, the better we'll be. Okay, questions about that, about our game plans for this week?
What do we need to bring to class with us tomorrow besides our sheets for you to sign off?
So bring your PPE, your hat and your gloves, or not your gloves. I'm going to give you new gloves. So I don't know how those gloves are doing that you have. You can leave them at home to continue practicing with them. So you don't have to bring your gloves, but make sure you bring your eye protection, your hat, and then you'll already be wearing a mask. So we should be good to go with that. And then we'll get new gloves, and then you will each get a gown. All right, and then you'll be responsible for toting those back and forth, or just leave them in your car or whatever you need to do. Okay, good question. I'll have new time cards for you, so you don't have to worry about bringing that. I'll have new time cards for SUR120, and then I'll leave that in your capable hands to bring back and forth. How about we get out our workbook and we just go through the pages that we need. You can, if you want to grab that, then you can do name, date, and sign, and maybe put a little sticky note or a little tab, or I don't know, a hair from your head, something to mark it, I don't know what. So we're gonna start on page, hold on one second, page 167. Page 167, I'm gonna mark mine as we go as well, is gonna be the surgical scrub. So you'll wanna put your name and date and sign that one. I had a Sharpie around here. Oh, there we are. Okay, so that'll be our first one. Scrub. And then, am I going too fast? You guys ready for the next one? Will be page 171. Drawing the hands and arms aseptically. Page 171. So we're just going to mark the ones for this week, okay? All right. After 171, then we have the next one after it, 173, is the gowning and gloving. And these are all listed in the Blackboard as well if you don't catch one of them. Okay, then we're gonna go over to page 258, 258. If these were in order, that'd be fantastic. They're not. Okay, page 258 should be opening the back table. We're gonna need that one. And then the next one is on page 260. So it's the one right after the opening the back table is opening a rigid sterilization container or system, I guess. Page 260. And the one following that, opening small sterile items, page 262. On page 266 is going to be opening the peel pouch. We'll need that one. Okay. That's all the ones that we're going to do for now. I moved pouring solutions and preparing the mayo stand to week 3. So those are the only ones that we'll need. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think. Okay. Again, if you missed a page or you're not sure, it's in the Blackboard under course content. It's also in the lesson plan. Okay, so name, date, sign, that will be super helpful for when we have to do all of the paperwork. Okay, questions about that? Get that out of the way. Okay, read through those before you come to class. That would be fantastic. Okay, so the last thing I have for us is an instrument activity. And it's similar to one that we've done before. So, however, before I went over each item first, but I'm gonna let you guys have a stab at it before we go over them. So, each of you individually will have an instrument. So hopefully, if I did my math right, we should each have one. There's 22 of us, and I have 22 instruments. Okay, so we're going to go, and I think everybody's here. So I'm just going to share my screen with you, and I will go down the list and give you an instrument. This is from chapter 3, which is the right chapter. I'm in the right book now. Okay. General instrumentation, it's chapter 3. Maybe I should put that here. Chapter 3. Okay, so I'll give you this link as soon as I sign everyone. All right, so we'll just start with the first one. I'm just gonna go down the roster. So Rulon, you will have Bake's common duct dilators. Bake's. Alexis, you will have Balfour. Next on my list is Tori. You're gonna have this, Carter Glassman intestinal clamp. Next on the list is Deaver. That's gonna be Sean. Sean, you have Deaver. Hannah, you're gonna get the Desjardins. Oh, Desjardins, whatever. Gallstone forceps. Next is Jacob. You'll have the Ferguson gallstone scoop. A lot of these are for what we call common bile duct exploration. So sometimes there's a stone that's stuck in a not so good place that originated in the gallbladder, gets stuck in the biliary tree somewhere, and then we get to do something fun called a common bile duct exploration. And so a lot of these are for that. Gallbladder choke heart, Jonathan, that's all you. Okay, Sarah, you'll have the Harrington. That's a good one. Also called the Sweetheart Retractor. Number 10, Lixie, that's you. Intraluminal stapler. This is a disposable device. Next one, Wendy. Geritrac self-retaining retractor. If you can't find it as Geritrac, look for Book Walter. Okay, book as in a reading book, Walter. They're pretty much the same thing. Number 12, Ariana, ligating and dividing stapler. The linear cutter and stapler, Gabe, that's you. And then there's just a plain old linear stapler, and that is Andrea. The Mayo abdominal retractor. Can you tell it was 4 o'clock when I did this? Okay. Ivana, you're gonna have the Mayo abdominal retractor. It's another Mayo in our midst. Okay. The Omni retractor, Robbie, you have Omni. The Pennington forceps, Jackie. The Pratt rectal speculum, Alyssa. You have the Pratt. Probe and groove director, Tammy. Probe and groove. It's groovy. Our old friend, the Richardson retractor, the re-ractor. That's Ian. Actually, okay, yeah. Richardson retractor, Ian. That's just our normal Richardson. And then Richardson, Eastman, Tallman, I'll have you do that one. This is actually that double-ended Richardson, is the Richardson Eastman. So Tallman, you have that one. The Surratt forcep, Rainey, you have that guy. And then lastly, the Sawyer rectal retractor, Adriana. Okay, anybody have questions about what their assignment is as far as their instrument? So what do we need to put on our slides? That's a fantastic question. So what we're gonna put on there is an image of the instrument, of course, and then the category that it is. Does it retract, clamp, occlude, blah, blah, blah. You guys know the drill as far as category, and then what is its most common use or uses. All right, so a picture, its category, and its use. All right? Questions? Oh, can I have the link, please? That's your next question. And the answer is yes, you may. It's coming in the chat right now.
So you said picture, category, and its use, right?
Yes, sir. All right, I'll give you a few minutes to get to it. I'll be here if you have questions. Just sitting here, drinking my coffee, which is cold. Zoom recording. Okay. I'm gonna go back to slide 1. How about that? Okay. Now we're where we need to be. All right. Bakes, you're up.
Can you hear me? Okay, so the base common duct dilators usually come in a set of 9. Category is probing and dilators. Mainly used to open and expand the common duct, bile duct to allow passage of bile from the liver, so pretty much passing stones. And you can see they have all different sizes right there. And that's it.
Yes, very good, excellent. So these are probably gonna come in like your common bile duct tray. So, and we call that a CBDE tray, common bile duct exploration tray. They may come up separate too, but that's just been my experience. You're gonna have a variety of sizes, and if they do need to go into the common bile duct to fish out a stone, they're usually gonna use a scope called a choledocoscope, which translates to common bile duct scope. And first they're gonna need to dilate that passageway. So these are also good for that as well, allowing the passage of the scope. Very good, thanks, Rulon. Questions about this guy? Okay. All right, Balfour.
The Balfour retractor, the category is retracting and exposing. It's used for like large abdominal wounds, and it's self-retaining. And there it is.
Very good. This is some assembly required by us. This comes in, this piece is separate, this piece is usually one, but a lot of times it doesn't have these retractor blades like as one solid component so that we can switch them out with different sizes because our patients are different depths. So typically this arm and this part are one piece, and then the blades are separately a few different sizes. This arm is separate. This little piece that holds on this retractor is separate, and these little end pieces could be separate as well. So when we're doing an exploratory laparotomy, and the Balfour is a common thing that we use, and that's something that we need to put together and have together and ready before the surgeon asks for it. Now, when we do put this together, we do not put this bladder blade on prior to giving it to the surgeon. So it would be without, this is called the bladder blade or a Delis bladder blade. There are some, I think there's a handheld one that we'll see coming up here later down the line. But this piece stays off, and these retractor blades squish together. This one slides down as far as it can, because with any self-retaining retractor, like we talked about before, you want to pass it to the surgeon so that it's closed, because the first thing they're going to want to do is insert it between the wound edges and then open up the retractor. Okay? Questions about this one? Thanks, Alexis. When we do an instrument count and we are going into the belly, all of these pieces get counted individually. So it will be like Balfour, and the count sheet should say how many pieces it has. So you'll say Balfour, and then you'll account for all of those parts and pieces. Okay, the Glassman intestinal clamp.
Okay, so that's the Carter Glassman intestinal clamp. Category is clamping and occluding, and its uses are for clamping bowel during resection.
Yes, you're absolutely right. These are denoted as non-crushing type clamps. So we're gonna actually clamp them right on the bowel itself. So if we're taking out a section of bowel, we're gonna clamp outside of that with these Glassmans. And a lot of times, there's other types, there's Doyens, but they basically kind of all work the same. They can be curved or straight, and they're gonna have these longitudinal lines typically going down from box lock to the tip, right? And we also have these little covers called clamp covers. There's like these little socks, for lack of a better term. They're disposable, but they slip on the jaws of the clamp just to give it a little bit more cushion, a little more padding. And those are part of our count as well. So a lot of times you'll see the surgeon like take the bowel and kind of, you know, run it this way, kind of squishing the contents out, right? And put the clamp, and then the same thing the other way, put the clamp, and then we're gonna resect that portion somewhere in the middle. All right, so that hopefully helps to reduce the contents spilling out into the abdomen, because we know that the contents of bowel, we don't want it in the abdomen, right? We want it to stay in the digestive tract, so that helps with that. Thanks, Tori. Perfect. Questions about this guy? Okay, moving forward on our tour of the general instruments, we have the Deaver retractor.
So the Deaver retractor is retracting and exposing is the category, and it's used for deep retraction of organs and viscera.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Sean. Absolutely. And this one looks like maybe it's about a 1 inch, but they also come in 2 inch and 3 inch. So they can be like this wide. And in a major type tray, you may have several different sizes of these retractors. And they also make baby Deavers as well, which are really super cute. They're about this long and they're just little tiny version of a Deaver. Okay, but yep, pretty simple and straightforward with that. Excellent job. What about the Desjardins gallstone forceps?
So it's also known as the Randall stone forceps. And then the category is grasping and holding, and it's used for grasping polyps and stones in the common bile duct and gallbladder. And then it's occasionally used for endometrial polyps as well.
Absolutely. What else can I say about this? I don't know. They do come in different degrees of curve. So this one's slightly curved, but you may see some that are almost like a hook curve. And then of course, surgeons like variety and our patients are different. So you'll see a variety of those in your common bile duct tray, or if they have them put up separately in the facility, but you'll get a variety of sizes. Yes, very good. Thank you. Ferguson gallstone scooper.
So the other names are scoop or spoon. This category is an accessory and it's used for removing gallstones or stones from the gallbladder.
Yes. Again, we can get it in various sizes and you'll see that it's double-ended. So we get a twofer with each one. Yes, very good. Thank you, Jacob. Next, gallbladder trocar. This looks dangerous.
Yep, so its category is cutting and dissecting. Its use is used for draining the gallbladder of bile during an open cholecystectomy procedure.
That's why we just say chole, because that's a lot easier to say. Yeah, cholecystectomy. You got it. You might see these a little bit differently depending on who the manufacturer is, but this big kind of handle, I haven't seen too many of these around. More I see, I don't know, it's kind of like they stop right here, but they have like this little, I don't know, like a stylet that goes down the center of it, and then there's like a spout that comes off from it where you can hook a suction to. So you might see some different ones, but as I say, the business end is going to look the same. So they can stab this into the gallbladder and suck out the fluid. Sometimes it's really hard to grab a hold of if it's just filled to capacity with bile. And so the first thing that they're going to want to do is put some sort of clamp on it so that they can hold it, hold traction, manipulate it, pull it this way and that. And if they can't get a hold of it or they're at risk of rupturing it, then they're going to drain out some of that fluid. Good job. Thank you, Jonathan. The Harrington.
Its category is retracting and exposing, and then its uses are retracting deep in an abdominal wound and sometimes retract the liver and intestine.
Very good. This guy is really great for the liver, like Sarah said, because it has this bigger end to it. And so we use it to retract the liver most frequently. Actually make a similar like fan type device that we can use laparoscopically that does the same job. But you will also hear this called the sweetheart retractor because the end of it looks like a heart. So Harrington, and then the street name would be the sweetheart. Okay, and you're gonna have these in the major tray as well. I've pretty much only seen them in one size, big. Okay, thank you, Sarah. All right, this intraluminal stapler looks interesting. Tell us about that.
So my fish tank is a little loud, but it's for suturing and stapling. It's used throughout the gastrointestinal tract. Is used in open abdominal and laparoscopic procedures.
Excellent. I like the sound of your fish tank. It sounds relaxing. So this guy is special because it gets inserted in the rectum. So at some point we'll take a closer look at this because we do have one in the lab and I can show you how it comes apart and how it works. But for just a little basic overview, when we're doing a low anterior resection, so a lot of times this is that segment of colon that is right near the sigmoid or affects the sigmoid. So it's really low in the pelvis. And that's a really difficult place for us to get to sew it or to put it back together. And so this device is really amazing for that. So what you do when you get it as the surge tech is you're going to twist this handle, this little knob right here, twist to the left and to the right, and it's going to, this little cap right here, it's kind of like a mushroom cap, is going to start moving out away from the black portion. And you're gonna keep going with the knob until you can literally pull that little cap off. And the surgeon's gonna take that, and the mushroom top of it is going to be sewn into the lumen of the bowel that is proximal. Okay, so the top end, like they've cut out a piece and now they need to hook it back together, right? They cut out a piece of the hose, they need to put the hose back together. So that top end of the hose, they're gonna put that little cap in there, do a little purse string stitch, which if you've ever seen like a bag or a satchel where you pull the strings and it closes the top of the bag, that's what a purse string stitch is. So they're gonna do that around the bowel, and they're gonna tie that in there. It's gonna have a little like portion that just sticks out like this, right? So that's what they do on the top. Then somebody, well, once you get the cap out and you give it to the doctor, you're gonna go with this knob in the opposite direction until that little post that's sticking out is inside, right? So you're gonna put some KY jelly on there or some lubricant, and usually the first assist that's helping out is going to insert that in the rectum. Okay, the distal end of the bowel is closed off with some staples. We stapled it shut. Okay, so they're going to put that up to that level. The surgeon's going to push that little post through that bowel and it's going to lock together. So now you have two closed ends of bowel together like this. Okay. And then the first assist is going to know what to do to line that up properly. And when the surgeon says go, they're going to squeeze this trigger right here. They're going to squeeze it, and it's going to do two things. One, it's going to cut in a circle, like it's going to cut a donut out of those two closed ends of bowel, and it's going to put staples in a circle. All right, so that is going to put our bowel back together. All right, now the assistant is going to take that out and hand it to you, and your job is to, again, go with this knob until you open it up, and there's going to be a little donut of bowel in there. The surgeon's going to want to see that, right? So you're going to get a forceps, and you're going to get that little donut of bowel out of there. And then you'll save it and have it with some coffee later. No, just kidding, you won't. But you'll let the surgeon look at the integrity of it to make sure it is a solid donut. All right, they want to make sure they have that solid ring. That's going to tell them that they have a solid seal on that bowel that they just put together. All right, so this like solved a lot of problems as far as doing those lower anterior resections, because before that, they just got a colostomy. All right, we couldn't put them back together. It's too difficult. Okay, that's the intraluminal stapler. It's amazing. Okay, thank you, Lixie. All right, the Geritrack. What'd you find out?
So this is also known as the book Walter retractor, and each individual piece has to be counted. Category is retracting and exposing, and then uses is used for retraction of large abdominal wounds. And then you can see it like individual pieces and then assembled.
Yes, ma'am, you're absolutely right. This one isn't too bad to assemble. Sometimes it'll have a couple different sized rings, like a smaller one that's a solid ring, and then this bigger one where you just have to kind of do the little thumb screws to make it a solid piece, solid ring. This part right here is going to get passed off, well, not entirely passed off, but you're going to give it to the surgeon, and the surgeon is going to put this end like down off the OR table, and the circulating nurse is going to attach it to the side rail. Right, so this is going to affix to the side rail, and then this is going to be coming up from the OR table straight up, and then this guy will attach onto it. It'll bring it over the patient, so you have kind of like this L thing happening, and it has this little clamp, and they're going to insert the ring into it. They can position it over the patient however they want, lock it down, and then they're going to use these little ratchets. These are called ratchets, and there's quite a few of them. You can see all these little guys right here that come in the tray, and more than likely, depending on your facility policy, they might only want you to count the ratchets of the book Walter and not the bigger pieces, because they're not so concerned with these big old pieces getting left as they are these little ratchets. So when in Rome, do what they want you to do, count the whole thing, count just the ratchets, whatever the case may be. And then these posts of the retractor go through the ratchets. You're gonna load the ratchets on them when the surgeon says what flavor of retractor they want, and then you're gonna pass it to them, and then they're gonna place it. However, one of the things with these big abdominal retractors is we want to have a bunch of moistened lap sponges, the big white square sponges, so that they can place them between the retractor and the actual tissue that they're retracting. So we're not as apt to damage the underlying tissue there. All right, so not too much assembly required by us, but some. Thank you, Wendy, great job. Questions about anything so far? Isn't this exciting? Okay. I just get excited about this stuff. Okay. Let's talk about the ligating and dividing stapler. Good job, good image.
So the ligating and dividing stapler is categorized as suturing and stapling. Its use is ligation and division of blood vessels and other tissues during abdominal, gynecologic, and thoracic procedures, often used in gastrointestinal surgery to ligate and divide the greater omentum and the mesentery.
Very nice. This is super fast. Like the old school way is 2 clamps and some scissors, 2 clamps and some scissors, 2 clamps and some scissors. And then the surgeon goes back and ties. And then you do it again if you still have more tissue that you need to ligate and divide. But this is nice because it's just like and you just go right down through the tissue, and that's super nice. But it's more costly. So it sometimes it depends on how cost conscious your surgeon is if they want to use some sort of disposable device. Good job, thank you. All right, the linear cutter and stapler. Good image here as well.
So actually, before I start, one question I had is, where is the actual blade?
So if you can imagine that this top part comes away from the bottom part. So the part that has the numbers, and this is like the little handle, they pull apart, right? And if you were to look inside this part, you would see a blade. So it's actually housed inside the device, if that makes sense. Does that help?
Yeah. Okay. So it would be suturing and stapling, and then I guess also cutting and dissecting. It's used in abdominal, thoracic, gynecology, and pediatric cases. And it's used for resection and transection of organs and tissues.
Yes, and it contains that blade, as opposed to the next one we're going to look at, which is just a stapler. This one puts then the staples that are loaded into this device. Actually, let's see. Yeah, so can you see this little gray tip sticking out here? This is part of a disposable cartridge. So this is a one-shot wonder as far as the stapling goes. So these devices come packaged, preloaded with one of these guys, and then these cartridges are also separate. So if the surgeon needs to use this more than once, which they typically do, especially for doing a bowel resection and anastomosis, then the nurse can just open the extra little cartridges onto your field, and that's a little bit less of a cost than opening the entire device. So as the surge tech, when you get this, you're going to pull these two pieces apart, and the surgeon's first going to want the bottom part, the part without the cartridge. So you're going to pass that. They're going to put it, let's say, underneath the loop of bowel, and then you're going to pass the top, and they're going to put it, lock it together, close the handle, and then there's a little slide. Maybe it's on the other side, or this one's different maybe, but there's a little button, usually like slides down the side, and so that'll put two linear rolls of staples like this, tiny, tiny little staples, really small, and then it'll cut between. So it's going to staple two lines and cut between, and then when you when they take it apart, then the bowel's going to be in half, and it's going to be sealed with those staples, which is really awesome. That thing is going to come back to you, and you want to keep a moistened sponge to just wipe it off, because there's going to be little bitty staples that are left on it, and you don't want those to go back into the wound. So you'll just, take a sponge, wipe it off, and then if the surgeon wants to use it again, then you'll just pop out this cartridge and you'll pop in the new one, and it's ready to go again. All right, for the surgeon to use it. So that's really awesome because it cuts and staples all at the same time. Thanks, Gabe. Good job. All right, let's look at the linear stapler.
So the linear stapler in the book, it also says it's called the TA stapler.
Good.
And then the category is suturing and stapling, and it's used for transaction and resection of tissues during abdominal, gynecologic, pediatric, and thoracic surgeries.
Very good. Yes. And this one is pretty much the same premise, except for it doesn't cut. So if we go back to our example of dissecting the bowel, then the loop of bowel is going to go in here, right? And then there's this little button that they push forward. It puts a little post through, it closes this off, slides a little post through there. And then there's a trigger in the back. There's either a trigger in the back or there's this handle here, and then that's what's going to fire the staples. But it doesn't cut. So you need to get ready with your knife so that as soon as they staple it, they're going to still be holding that stapler. They're going to take a knife and then they're going to cut, which means one end is going to be, one end is going to be sealed and the other end is going to be stapled. But if they're doing something like a colostomy, this might be good, or if they're just cutting off a little extra bit of tissue, this works as well. So surgeon's preference here and the case kind of what they're doing determines whether they're going to use one of those linear cutter stapler jigamahoosies or just the linear stapler. Like Andrea said, typically we refer to these as TAs, and then as this one here, hold on, can I go back? This one here as a GIA. GIA and TA, okay? Very good, thank you so much. Questions about any of these?
So will these different staplers come in our major tray, or is that going to be on the preference card for our surgeon?
Great question. They won't come in our instrument trays because they're disposable. So what I have seen is there's like a GI cart or like a bowel cart. It kind of looks like one of those big rolling like tool carts you would see in like Dad's garage or something. And it is loaded with all of these different staplers, and these staplers and the GIAs, they all come in different sizes too, like 35 millimeters wide, you know, wider, narrower, and they're all going to be in one cart. You just wheel that into your room, and then at the time you will, your surgeon will let you know what type and what size, and then it's just there and easily accessible. The nurse can get in, get out what you need, and then pop it open onto your table. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Anything else? All right. Good job. Okay, what about this Mayo abdominal retractor?
So the Mayo abdominal retractor is also referred to as abdominal wall retractor. The category is retracting and exposing, and it's used for retraction of the abdominal wall. And as you can tell by the picture, it's very like smooth and curved shape so that it doesn't penetrate anything.
Yeah, very good. So this is that handheld version of the one that attaches to the Balfour. So you'll notice that it just has a solid handle and it doesn't have that little cutout in the middle of it like the other, like a lot of times we just refer to these as bladder blades, but yes, very good. Thank you. Okay, the Omni.
Oh, it was mine. But the other photos didn't come out. I have it on my phone right here. I don't know why it didn't come out.
Oh.
I put like 3 different photos. Maybe, let me see. Yeah, it comes out right here. I wonder why. Okay, well, mine was, yeah, I think Miss Windsor, I think you might need to refresh it because this is, yeah, I like updated information on it.
Okay.
Now it came up. Go to number 16.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me
I was like, what's going on?
Hold on one sec. There we go.
Okay, so I did 3 examples. Category is retracting, exposing. Another name is upper arm retractor. Common is general or orthology, ortho, and its usage is retracting a large abdominal wound. So I put example of when they're doing a surgery and then one that's already built and separate.
Awesome. Those are fantastic images. Again, a lot of times facilities are just going to have you count these little ratchets, but you know, just make sure of what their policy is. Have an awareness that it could be either way. And then if you are using this during a procedure, that's a fantastic question to ask your preceptor. It makes you sound informed, that you actually have an understanding that there's different ways that it can be counted. Like at your facility, do you just count the ratchets or do you count everything? Like what's your policy? This one is a little bit more hairy as far as the assembly goes. Or it can be. Sometimes these little bars here, you have to hook those together, and then you have to hook the crossbars together. So there can be a little bit more of an assembly required here. AAA is the only place I've ever used these, but if they're working on the stomach or something like that, the surgeon might want it as well. And then, yeah, great picture. You can see what it looks like when it's put together up there in the top right as well. Good job. Excellent job. Questions about this? Yeah, Rulan. So the surge tech should be taking these apart. So they need to be checked. Just going to say. Yeah. And that's something I can get on my high horse about, is how intimately sterile processing and the OR need to work together, because it's our job as surge techs at the end of the case to think forward to what the next step in the process is. And that's taking these instruments to processing. Everything should be disassembled. Don't send anything back to processing that is still put together, because that just makes their job more difficult. And if you have 5 different trays and you've mixed up the trays, like, you shuffled them like a deck of cards, that's also going to be more difficult for your sterile processing people as well. So you want to think forward about the next person's job in the process. And then sterile processing's job is to think forward still about what happens to the instruments after they process them, right? Would make sure they have all the little wingdings and make sure they're clean and packaged properly, and all of those things. So it really does help if we can think forward about each other, because, we couldn't do this without sterile processing. They have a really big job that they do for us. And so as much as we can care for them and think about them, the better. That's just my feeling. I would say, Rulan, that one thing that comes to mind for me when I was working in decon was taking apart like the ortho stuff. Like, I don't know how much stuff I saw come back that was still all assembled. And, because I was a surge tech and I worked with that stuff, I understood how to take it apart. But several times people would come to me and be like, I don't even know how to get this apart, right? Like, sterile processing might not know that. I mean, they know what pieces and they know where they go, but they don't know how to build them like we do. Okay, I'm off my high horse now. I'm getting hoarse.
The Pennington forceps, the category is grasping and holding. It's used for grasping tissues during general procedures. It's commonly used in intestinal and rectal procedures, and it's also used for grasping the uterine layers during closure of a cesarean section.
Good. The Pennington is characterized by this little triangle shape that's at the tip. You will see another instrument once we get further into our studies called a Duval lung forceps, and it has a big triangle on the end as well. But the smaller triangle, those are the Penningtons. And I've definitely seen them used for all of these things. Another thing I've seen them used for is something called an anterior-posterior repair, which happens in and around the female perineum. And so they're just kind of removing some redundant tissue there for prolapse or what have you. And so they'll use these to grasp onto the tissue there sometimes as well. Very good. Thank you. The Pratt rectal speculum.
The Pratt rectal speculum is in the retracting and exposing category. It is a self-retaining speculum used for providing exposure for visualization of the anus and rectum. It features 2 rounded blades, and it's commonly used for hemorrhoidectomies, rectal polypectomies, and rectal biopsy procedures. And it has a little screw on the side that will hold the blades open if you turn it.
Yes, ma'am. So before we give this to the surgeon, what 2 things can you think of that we would want to do to prepare it?
Lubricate.
Lubricate it and then make sure that screw is like all the way out so it's in its most closed position. And then you're good to go. Excellent, thank you. Perfect. All right, probe and groove.
The probe and groove director is in the probing and dilating category. Common uses: detecting an obstruction in a tubular structure or determine the path and the extent of a fistula tract. May be used in gallbladder, urethral, uterine, and then several other areas. I think I took a peek and it said it can be also used in dental or ortho.
I don't know much about dental.
Neither do I.
And I don't want to. Yes, this is the groove director, and it's more rigid and solid than the probe. Sometimes they'll just use the probe by itself, but the probe is very malleable so that they can bend it this way and that. And where I've seen it used the most is on rectal fistulas. So sometimes they're a blind-ended tract. They will insert the groove director if they can. If not, they'll just work with the probe. And a lot of times what they'll do is if they find that it comes out like higher up in the rectum, they'll just take like a cautery and they're just going to cauterize and open up that entire tract so that it'll start to heal. But that's where I've used it the most, but it definitely helps you from finding little blind pathways like fistulas. And you'll usually see them packaged with a groove director and a probe will be packaged together, or they will come in your set together. These little probey guys are easy to get lost. So if you do notice that there's a groove director in there, preoperatively, it's just good to look and make sure that the groove director is there, because our pans have holes in them, or whatever the case may be. They're easy to get lost. So just double check that both pieces are there. Excellent, thank you, Tammy. Okay, Richardson retractor, this is an old friend.
So the Richardson retractor, category retracting and exposing. It's used for retraction of wound edges, and just because there wasn't that much else in the book, I described it as having a hollow grip handle with a lateral curve to the blade. The body of the blade is concave with a crescent-shaped lip that is laterally bent.
That's a fantastic description. Thank you. And traditionally, the Richardson just has one end. As we'll see, the Richardson Eastman has 2 ends. Yeah, good. And then they can come in a variety of sizes like we've seen in the lab. Excellent, thank you, Ian. All right, Richardson Eastman.
The Richardson Eastman retractor is used for retracting and exposing wound edges. It's a double-ended handheld retractor. Has a short end and a long end. The short end is for superficial incisions, and the longer end is to retract deeper incisions. And I noticed there are 2 different sizes, but I'm not sure like what it's used for. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks. Yeah, so this is just one of our basic retracting type instruments, and you know, it has a different size of end on each side, so that gives us double the use out of it, right, depending on how big or how deep the wound is. And you'll probably find several of these in your tray that are different sizes, right? Because again, our patients are different shapes and sizes, and our surgeons have different preferences. So you'll probably find a variety of them in your tray, and they're typically used to retract the wound edges and or to retract other various tissues within out of the way, you know, just so that the surgeon can see what they're doing. So yeah, you got it. It's perfect. Thank you. All right, the SUR120.
So the Serrat, which makes me look at it and I think tarot, I don't know why, but they're long curved forceps with long narrow jaws that have horizontal serrations running the length of the instrument. They're part of the clamping and occluding category, and they're primarily used for dissecting and clamping vessels deep in the wound, primarily used during thoracic operations to clamp off the ends of bleeding or ruptured blood vessels.
Fantastic. Kind of looks similar to an Adson tonsil, but longer tip, longer, skinnier tip. Perfect. Good job. Thank you, Rainey. All right, is this our last one? Our last one, Sawyer rectal retractor.
Okay, so the SUR rectal retractor, the category is retracting and exposing, and it's used for providing exposure for visualization of the anus and the rectum.
Very good. So like the other one that we saw was the Pratt, right, is more of a self-retaining, where this one is definitely a handheld one. Again, you're going to see a variety of sizes of this in your instrument tray, or maybe they're in a tray just you know, by themselves with a variety of sizes in there. And again, if we're working in the rectum, then we want to make sure that we put some lubricating jelly on this to prepare it before we pass it to the surgeon, so that it's less abrasive to the tissues when it's inserted or manipulated or whatever the case may be. Okay, nice job. Questions about these instruments? All right. Your job for your Blackboard activity will be to upload that link. All right. So that should be an easy couple clicks. Make sure you do that so that you do get attendance activity. What else can I say? For this week, and what I was thinking is, as I record the PowerPoints 9 and 10, I will talk a little bit more about the group activities, but just to kind of do a quick recount, there will be 3 activities that you're doing this week, depending on when you're in lab. But the first group activity you'll do is to watch Chapter 9, recorded lecture. You're going to identify muddy points. Each of you will have some different muddy points. And then there's a case study that you need to complete as a group. And then you will just do that in a Google Doc. One of you can submit the link to the discussion board, and then you'll all post your muddy points individually. Okay, again, that's the more specific those muddy points are, the easier it will be for me to prepare for next Monday. All right, so you'll do Chapter 9 and Chapter 10 in pretty much the same ways. All right, you'll watch it, you'll get your muddy points together, you'll do your case study. Okay, and then the third thing that you will do this week as a group is going to be to create a Google Slides presentation, and that's going to be in alignment with the principles of aseptic technique. So in the Fuller's book on page 149, it goes through all the principles and practices. Okay, so I'm just going to turn there really quickly so I can speak to it specifically. Page 149. So it's under the heading Basic Principles of Aseptic Technique. So we've already been through the principles of aseptic technique. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to create a slide for each of those principles. Here we have 1 through 16. So you'll have 16 slides minimum. And what you're going to do on that slide is first, you're going to provide a specific break-in technique that could occur that is in alignment with that principle. So for example, on number 1, it says sterile surfaces contact only sterile surfaces, non-sterile surfaces contact only non-sterile surfaces. Remember that from micro? Okay, so it gives an example of a contamination. The circulator's bare hand accidentally touches the surge tech's gloved hand. Do not use the one in the book. That's cheating. All right. The example that I gave was the surgeon's hat touched the sterile light handle. Hat's not sterile, light handle's sterile. There's a contamination there. Okay, so some sort of contamination that could occur, you're going to give an example. All right, and this is all written out as well when you look in your group discussion area. All right, so you're going to title the slide whatever the principle is. You're going to give an example of a contamination, and then you're going to write the steps to correct it. All right, so this is what I put for the example of the surgeon's hat touching the sterile light handle. I'm going to call it out. All right, that's the first thing that you always do when something's contaminated, right? I'm going to say, hey, surgeon's hat just touched the light handle, it's contaminated. So the first thing I'm going to do is verbalize to the surgeon that his or her hat contaminated the light handle. The next thing I have to do is get rid of the contaminated thing, right? I can't touch it because I'm sterile. So who is my non-sterile helper in the OR? Who's going to help us out?
Circulating nurse.
Yes. Yes, they are our bestest friends. So I'm going to say, I'm going to ask the circulator to remove the light handle that's contaminated. And then what else do I have to ask the circulator to do then?
It's a new one.
Yeah, gets us a new one. So can you please remove the contaminated one? And can you get us a new one? And then what do I have to do once I get the new one?
Follow sterile procedure and put it back.
Yes, I got to replace it, right? Using sterile technique. Okay, so that's what you're going to do. All right, so that's the first part, is creating your Google Slides presentation. We like pictures, so if you could find some, that would be fantastic. And then there's a part 2 as well. And the part 2 is going to be to make a mind map of the sterilization methods. All right, because we're looking at chapters 9 and chapters 10. So the first one is relating to chapters 9. The second one is relating to chapter 10. And so you're going to use Go Conquer and make sure that you change the access so that I can access it when I click on it. I also provided a website that if you're like, meh, I don't even remember what a mind map is. I gave you a website that you can look at, right? So you're going to go to Go Conquer and you're going to create a mind map for the sterilization methods. And I've listed them here specifically, but you can find them on page 194 starting. So there's 3 different types of steam sterilization. There's ethylene oxide, there's hydrogen peroxide, peracetic acid, ozone, and cobalt. So you're going to address all of those. And you want to put in some details there, right? Map it out, flesh it out so that it's a good resource for you to return to. That's the whole point here, right? Giving you different resources that you can use to study or review or whatever the case may be. All right, one member will upload the links, or you can have one member upload the Google Slides, one member upload the other one, all right, the mind map, and then I also have a little section in red that says individually. So individually, you're going to post in the discussion one thing that you learned from each activity. Okay, so one thing you learned from doing the principles, and the other thing you learned from doing the sterilization mind mapping. All right, so hopefully talking through that helps because you hear it again, plus it's going to be recorded. I will post this so that you can have a resource to refer back to if you have a question. And I'll try to do this every Monday to get you up and going for the things that are coming over the next 4 days. Okay. Questions for me? Okay, so tomorrow I'm seeing group A in the lab. We'll be together from 8 to noon. Bring your PPEs, bring your study guide or your workbook, whatever you guys call it, the Surge Tech workbook. I will have preference cards for you, or yeah, I will have preference cards for you and time cards for you. That will be yours to keep. Okay?
So I'm not seeing the LVL in the assignments yet.
It might not come up until 11, and we're just 1 minute before 11.
Sorry.
So patience, my dear child. Yeah, I think it's 11 o'clock that it'll be available. So I'll double check it once I get off from here, but I'm pretty sure. All right. Anything else? You guys okay? It's going to be a fun week. I am available by phone and email if you need me, and I'll be seeing you throughout the week. All right. So you know how to get a hold of me. If you need something, let me know. Okay. Oh, and then the other thing is I'm pretty much done with grades for SUR140. I just have to make any PPS adjustments. So I am technically supposed to post those today, but I'll wait till tomorrow in the AM just so that you can get your eyeballs on those one more time. And then I'll go ahead and post the final grades probably when I get up at 4 AM in the morning, tomorrow morning. Okay, so if you see anything wonky besides the PPS, I haven't done that yet. But my goal is to do that right now and get that finished up. Okay. All right, Jonathan, did the Blackboard activity come up?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that confirmation. All right, that is all I have.